Hello, I'm John Adams, editor of Digital Photo, and welcome to this video tutorial which is all about black and white toning effects. Now there's a wealth of different things you can do with black and white toning, and what we want to do is just cover the basics in this video lesson and show you how you can create wonderful toning effects like sepia or cyanotype or red toning with just a few clicks of the mouse. After that we're going to look at some custom toning so you can really fine-tune your results and get the exact toning colour and intensity that you're after. Okay, well before we start toning, the best thing we need to do is convert our picture to black and white in the first place. We can of course go straight to black and white using toning. If I just show you quickly, if I just open a colour image, hit Ctrl and U on the keyboard, we bring up the hue sat palette, tick colorize, and you get an instantly toned result. But by going straight to black and white in this way, we haven't actually worked on our tonality in the black and white image. By that I mean we haven't assigned particular colours to either light grey or dark grey or white or black, depending on what we want to do. So before you do all this, the best thing really is to actually convert to black and white in a normal method. Now we've got Elements 8 open on screen at the moment, and we're going to convert using the Enhance, Convert to Black and White option. And that brings up our dialog box, quite a large dialog box. That gives us an after effect. But whichever software you're using, whether you're using Elements or Photoshop, you can have a look at the video about converting to black and white to choose which method you want to use. Now I'm going to go for a kind of an infrared effect here, so let's just have a look through. We've got styles here in Elements. I'm going to tick on infrared, and then I'm going to crank up the red amount a bit more, just a bit higher. That's the kind of thing. Bring down green a touch. That's it. So I want that kind of glowing red thing. That'll do the trick there. That's okay. Now I've done that, I'm just going to click OK. So we have our black and white result. Now if you're starting toning from a black and white image, one thing that's really important is to first check the mode of the image. To do that, just go to Image, go to where it says Mode, mode there, and check you're in RGB colour. If you're on grayscale, which of course is very, very possible with a black and white image, then toning stuff is not going to work. So if you are on grayscale, change it to RGB colour before you do anything else. Really important step that. Okay, once that's done, you've got a black and white RGB colour image. All you need to do is hit Ctrl and U on the keyboard. We bring up this wonderful palette called Hue Saturation. Now that's the quickest way to get there. We'll look at how we can do it using an adjustment layer a little later on. But all that's involved in this is three sliders. Hue, which is the colour itself, saturation, which is the volume or the intensity of the colour, and lightness, which is anything between black and white. So we can get a washed out effect or a very dark effect. Lightness we don't need to touch, so I'm going to leave that set to 0. And then down here we've got two very useful buttons, Preview and Colorize. And Colorize is the business end of the Hue Sat palette when it comes to toning. Tick this and your image is instantly toned. By default it will go to 25% in saturation and 0 in hue, which is red. But if I just close it quickly, and let's just cancel out, if I change this foreground colour swatch here, if I click on that and pick, let's go for something like a lurid green, that'll do the trick. We'll pick this green here, click OK. Next time I open the Hue Sat palette, Ctrl and U to open it, and then tick the Colorize box, look what happens. That green is imported. It's only imported at 25%, but if we whack the saturation all the way up, you can see that the green we have here is the same green that's in the foreground colour swatch. We'll have a bit more information on that later on, but for now we'll just cancel out again, go back to black and white, our default colours, and then open up the Hue Sat palette. And there we have, when we tick the Colorize box, we have our normal red colour. Okay, so what does it mean? Red is 0, and if we move hue all the way through, red is also 360. Now of course, let me just crank up the saturation. We're talking about degrees here, because the best way to think of hue is as a wheel. So we've got a wheel of colour. If we go back to 0 and then start keying in the same increment all the way through, we'll see what's happening. Now if we add 60 degrees to hue, let's just punch in 60, we get yellow. If we go for 120 degrees, another 60 degrees on top of that, we get pure green. If we then go for 180, we've got cyan. 180 degrees, that means we've got the opposite of red. And of course, cyan is the opposite of red. So they're diametrically opposed or 180 degrees apart. And if we go for the next one, we should get the opposite of yellow, which of course would be blue. So if we add another 60 degrees to this one here, we go to 240 and we get blue. And this carries on green and magenta. If we go to 300, we get magenta. You can see we've got red, green and blue opposed by yellow and cyan and magenta. So there's our kind of 6 basic colours that we use to mix everything else from. And that helps give us a little bit of insight into how Photoshop colour works using that wheel of colour. So once we know there are fixed values for different colours, all we need to do is punch those into the HueSat palette and we get instant toning effects. For example, if you want a nice rich sepia tone, about 30 in hue, let's just key that in, and about 30 in saturation will give you a nice result. There's a nice sepia tone. If you want a cyanotype toning, just a little bit short of blue will do the trick, so about 220. Blue, remember, is 240, so we go for about 220 there. And most cyanotypes are fairly rich, so we'll go for about 40 in saturation. We get a lovely sort of blue cyanotype toning. If you want red toning, we know red is 0 or 360, so we punch 0 into hue. And then for saturation, 40 looks pretty good there as well, but of course you can vary that as you see fit. If you just want a slightly warm effect, then we need sort of a goldy colour in the hue, so let's go for somewhere around 20 should be good. Then we just drop down the saturation till it's just visible. Normally that's going to be around 10 to 15. And that gives just a little bit of warmth compared to the normal black and white image. We can always use the preview button here just to try it before and after. You can see the warmth just coming through there in that image. Okay, we'll try one more. We'll go for a cool tone effect, and this time we want it to look quite blue in the hue department, so we'll crank that up to sort of somewhere in the 200s. About 230 should be okay. And again, the saturation needs to be fairly low, I guess somewhere between 10 and 15. We've got about sort of 11 or so there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And again, we can try preview just to see the before and after. You can see that slight blueness, that sort of subtle blue colour coming through and cooling down the picture. So there are some really quick toning recipes for sepia, cyanotype, red, warm tone and cool tone. And once you've chosen the one you want, all you need to do is click OK and the job's done. So there's the quick and simple stuff. Let's now look at how we can custom tone an image and chase down a particular colour toning effect. We'll change our image, we'll close down this Hilton shot here and we'll open up another one. Let's have a look. What have we got here? We're going to go for Bruges JPEG. And of course, we need to convert to black and white again. Now I'm in Elements here, so all I'm going to do is go to Enhance, use the Convert to Black and White option, and then try some of these presets here, the styles. That looks pretty good with a nice dark sky. No. Vivid Landscapes isn't bad. My favourite of those is that dark sky one, the infrared effect. I'm just going to adjust the intensity slightly on this one as well. So I'm going to drop the green a touch. That's really bringing the reds through. There we go. And then I'm going to boost those reds. Oh, that's quite nice. That's gone slightly too high though, so just drop that green. That looks pretty good there. Sort of a nice rich red filter effect. That's good. Now that's done, I'm going to click OK. And there's our nice rich black and white conversion with a dark sky and some very white bright highlights. Now that's done, I'm going to start using some layers. So to bring up our layers palette in Elements, just hit F11 on the keyboard. If you're in the full version of Photoshop, hit F7 and your layers will pop up on screen. Now what we need is the hue saturation palette. We're going to get to that via an adjustment layer. Let me just close down those layers a bit. Adjustment layer icon here, click on that, and from the list, there it is, select hue saturation. And that brings up our familiar dialog box, the HueSat palette on screen. Now what we're going to do is tick the colorize box just as we did before. So tick that. And that defaults to our familiar scene here, the red toning with 0 in hue and 25 in saturation. What we're going to do is get our colour right first and foremost. So we'll just slide that up to about 50 in saturation. And then we're going to choose our hue. Now, we can go for all sorts of options here, but I'm going to just move the hue slider to see what kind of colour I want. Now there's our sort of sepia range here in the orangey brown colours. I want something quite cool, I think, for this picture, because I think that's going to work well with a dark sky. So somewhere around the cyan and blue, sort of a crossover between the two would be really good. So I'm settling on about 205, because I think that works really nicely with the image. So about 205 in the hue there, and then obviously our saturation here is a bit on the loud side. So what we're going to do is actually back off the saturation all the way to 0. We're going to get rid of it. Now we've chosen our colour, I want to see that in black and white. So I don't want my eyes to be thrown by what we've just done or any other colours on the desktop. I've got this nice neutral grey area here, so I want to just wait for a short while until my eyes are really seeing that in black and white and aren't seeing any warm tone or cool tone there. Now once I've got that, what I then need to do is actually crank up the saturation just bit by bit until there's enough of the effect there. Now that's working nicely. I think that's probably about right there actually. I've got 28 in saturation. I think that is exactly the kind of effect I'm after. Anything less and I've just got a cool tone, and anything more and it gets too cyan and looks a bit overdone. So I think that area of 28 looks about spot on. So there I've picked a custom colour using a hue of 204, 205, something like that, and then I've backed off the saturation all the way to 0 and gradually increased it until I've got the amount I want. And I think that's looking rather nice there with a hue of 205 with a saturation of 28. So that's a slightly slower but more effective way of getting your hue saturation. And once you're happy with the effect, using elements, any version of elements up to element 7, just click OK. And if you're using elements 8, just click on the adjustment layer tab over here to get rid of it. It'll stay there. That's the same as clicking OK. It's just sitting there behind the layers palette, ready to be brought back if you need to adjust it. Okay, so once you're happy with all your toning effect, if you don't want to do any more, all you need to do is flatten the image. So just click on the flyout arrow here and select flatten image. And the changes you made will be crunched down. Save the image under a new name and the job's a good one. Now if we just backtrack slightly, just hit Ctrl Z. If you want a really specific toning colour, let's say for example we've got another image open, such as this beach and rocks one, what we can do is just leave that to one side and we'll just make it a little bit smaller. There we go, I'm just holding Ctrl and Alt and tapping the minus key to make that smaller. If we wanted a particular colour, let's just delete that adjustment layer. All we have to do is click on the foreground colour swatch and say instead of using the colour picker we wanted something from this image here and wanted that sky, for example, the blue of that sky. We can click on that sky, click OK to set our foreground colour, and then we can set up our adjustment layer and pick hue saturation. When we tick colorize this time, that sky colour is automatically put in place, and we can see there if we crank up saturation, there it is, that's our sky colour. And there we have our instant toning using the colour from another image. So if you want a very specific toning colour, a particular blue or red or whatever it may be, then you can use another image to set up the hue of your colour change. So it's quite a handy tip, that one, if you want something very, very specific. I'll just show you that once more so it makes sense. We'll just close down that adjustment layer. All we have to do is click on our foreground colour swatch, ignore the colour picker for the time being. We'll pick a green this time. There's that sort of a strange mossy green from this image here. Once we've got that colour, let's find a nice one. That's the sort of thing. Yeah, that'll do nicely. Once we've got that, we click OK. That's imported as the foreground. And then we open up our hue saturation adjustment layer, tick colorize, and that same colour is imported. We can then increase the saturation to match. And there's that mossy green colour taken directly from this and placed via our hue saturation palette straight onto our mono image. So give all those techniques a whirl, use the colour recipes, try some custom toning, and then try toning using a colour from a separate image. Do all those three, you'll be well on your way to monotoning in a really successful way. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next time.